Welcome to the Halo Effect, hospitality stories with Ashleigh and Michael Donald. Hospitality isn't just our profession, it's our passion. With decades of experience and countless stories to share, we've navigated the highs and lows of this dynamic industry, not just as professionals, but as a husband and wife team tackling the challenges of business and life together. This podcast is your invitation to step behind the curtain of the hospitality world. We'll share real experiences, lessons learned, and the moments that have shaped our journey, offering inspiration and insights for anyone walking a similar path. Whether you're just starting out or have years under your belt, we're here to remind you that every challenge is an opportunity and every story has the power to inspire. Hello and welcome back to the Halo Effect Hospitality Stories with Ashleigh and Michael Donald. Today, inspired by the recent new series of The Night Manager, we're stepping behind the scenes of night managership and looking into what is potentially one of the most misunderstood roles in a hotel. It's not about spies and silk shirts. It's about fire alarms at 3 a.m. and guests who can't sleep and maybe had a little bit too much to drink, and those leaders that keep the hotel running when everyone else has gone home. So we're not going to really have establishing shots of Cartagena? Colombia?
Cartagena, I think, yeah.
Cartagena. But, you know, it's more about rainy Turnberry in the middle of the night, in the middle of February. Ashleigh, you've done some night manager shifts and things like that in your time, but probably not as many as I have.
Well, you had a full stint. How long were you night manager for when you went to London and Turnberry, of course?
Well, and Dublin.
Yeah.
So I probably first became a night manager in Dublin, and it was one of those roles where it was kind of, who's going to cover the night shift? Who's gonna stay? It definitely was just someone stay in house all night rather than a sort of a night manager leader role. But it was definitely my experience starting in hotels was very much kind of, there's this opportunity, let's take that opportunity, let's do that, let's take that opportunity. It was always about sort of taking opportunities as they came along. I didn't sort of go through hotel school or anything. So it was kind of learning by experience. And I think probably what is the most important thing is trust.
Yeah.
As with so many things in hospitality, and trusting, maybe a hotel manager trusting their team and trusting someone to be in-house overnight, and in those kind of hotels it was you the only person there. Yeah, so it was
not necessarily a team or
no, absolutely, and so it was the only person in-house, and I think that was, it was a great experience. And it was different in that, I think La Stampa was more known as a restaurant that had rooms above,
right,
and a bar, but it was Dublin city centre as well.
Yeah,
so it's busy. So busy Friday, Saturday nights, lots of people around, and up until about 2 or 3 a.m. there would be security and there would be doormen and there would be teams around all the time. But then for about sort of 4 or 5 hours it was pretty quiet. The odd person coming home in the middle of the night that you'd had to kind of make sure they safely got up to their room. But it was my first sort of experience of having that level of trust and being trusted by guests and trusted by management. But also they have to trust us as well.
Yeah, and also, like, did they give you like the tools, the training?
No. Gosh. No. I mean, there was always sort of helping you kind of deal with certain situations as they come up, certainly. I think what the biggest thing for me was, as I got into hotels, a lot of it was sharing stories with friends who had worked in hotels for longer. So I had sort of 2 very good friends who had been in hotel school and had gone through working in hotels since they were about 15 years old, who had amazing stories. I remember Rob Morgan had great stories of working in the Morrison doing night shifts and bumping into celebrities, and that was kind of one of the things, Christina Aguilera and Matthew McConaughey and
amazing
things like that.
Well, I think this is the romanticized version that we again, like, see on TV.
Exactly.
And with like The Night Manager and other kind of hotel programs. It's very much kind of built up to be that sort of like celebrity, like hobnobbing, rubbing shoulders with. And
and he would have had, a couple of nights maybe where, you had those stories that you're like, wow, amazing, and you're telling them for 20 years, 30 years, whatever it might be. And, I had those experiences as well, even in La Stampa, even though it was not a 5-star hotel by any means, but the restaurant was very, very well regarded.
Sure.
And the owner, Louis, was very, very well regarded. So we did have celebrities. I mean, Charlize Theron was in there and stayed the night while just after winning an Oscar. So it was
amazing.
like
Were you night manager that night?
I think I was probably doing a sort of a 24-hour shift.
Volunteering.
I think I volunteered. I'll just stay. But you mentioned that, but that's also one of the things that happens. You know, it's like we need someone to be here overnight. You know, who can do it, and there's no night manager available, and it's like, oh, I'll do it. And I was a porter, and by porter it was luggage porter, linen porter, breakfast porter, like, was everything porter. But I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And they're like, okay, we'll give you a go. And I probably did a 24-hour to 36-hour shift, you know, double shift, triple shift, whatever it was. And some of that involved staying overnight as well to make sure everything was okay. And it was kind of a taste of what you can experience. Now, I did those double and triple shifts all through my career. Then I kept on doing it at other hotels as well, where maybe you're stuck for night coverage, and as a head of department, you
just got to
ran out of choices a little bit, and you kind of realize, oh, okay, I'm gonna have to do this. And but it's definitely it is a key role. There's no two ways about it. And I think we talk about trust, but also there's trust. There's, you know, you're at that time of night, you're seeing maybe even employees and guests and everything at potentially the most vulnerable, a few drinks, maybe other things going on.
I mean, there's all sorts of the kind of nighttime after hours sort of experiences.
That's what I very much remember in that first role was people coming in for a drink, you know, after work and things like that, and you're like, okay, now I have a few, you know, I have bits of dirt on you if something was to happen. But, you know, obviously you're discreet, and you have that trust, and you need to reflect that as well. And it's
when I worked at the Broadmoor Hotel in Colorado Springs, I did my 1-year internship, so I was about 20, and did a few night shifts and had to deal with a few midnight cougars, but of the mountain lion variety. So we used to, I was just so clueless. I used to work on the front desk, and we would have to, it was, you know, 24/7 operation. So again, we would have to sort of volunteer, well, not necessarily volunteer, but it was rotated to do night shifts. But I mean, you know, it was like a resort on the foothills of the Rockies. I mean, absolutely stunning. But I mean, we would get, you know, security
you would have had
alerts.
A big team, right?
Absolutely, and a big security team that would be, you know, working the perimeter. But we would get, you know, notifications on the radio that there was like a mountain lion on the resort. Cougar alert. So you'd have to, you know, just make sure, almost like lock down, etc. And, you know, if there was like a bear prowling around the perimeter, and so it was kind of quite a different night shift. Not as many sort of tales of the more human interactions of a kind of busy city centre.
I mean, you would have, that was the first time we dealt with sort of robberies and things like that. You get people sneaking in and stealing drink from behind the bar, or you'd have dodgy stuff going on, or just people getting in fights and all those kind of things that happen, that you suddenly become very used to calling 999. You know, it's like, oh, here we go again. Call 999. So I think as a night manager, that's probably what you would. I can't remember the last time I called 999, but as a night manager, probably did it quite. Yeah, it was quite regular.
And so then you've had experience. So you've obviously had La Stampa, you've had London, and then in Turnberry, which is, you know, another quite remote golf resort. So how did the experience differ between being on a, you know, a resort surrounded by golf courses versus, you know, a very kind of central city centre hotel?
Well, I think the first difference was there was more support, because there was a team in the hotel. Maybe not as late as it was in Dublin, but then there would be a concierge team in Turnberry. In Turnberry, yeah. There was two or three, depending on how busy it was, maybe one, and then the flex between quiet and busy, like the difference was massive. There were some days it would be 2% occupancy. We might have 1 or 2 rooms in house in the dead of winter in Turnberry, and then sometimes 100%. And
it's like The Shining.
Oh, big time. And I remember having well, this is diverting it a little bit, but I remember having an interview for moving to London, and I was like, so is it a busy hotel? And I guarantee it was 2% occupancy that night. And plain face, yeah, it'd be a busy hotel. Didn't give the occupancy that night, but that was probably the biggest difference, was that there were other people around all night. But also there was way more responsibility as well. You know, I don't know, is it 200 acres or something? That land it's a lot, and so if it was busy, you'd have golfers having a few drinks, and you'd have the restaurant would be busy, the bar would be busy, there could be lots of
and there was also
as well,
accommodation, not necessarily in the main hotel, that down in the lodges and cottages, which was a walk away or a buggy ride, but you might have guests in the dog, a few drinks, just making sure that they got into their lodges.
And I think we've probably told the story before where we had a few, it wasn't I wasn't the night manager on duty that night, but people being given the keys to the wrong room, and then there's arguments, and there's misunderstanding, people sleeping in
beds,
the wrong beds, and that obviously needs. I think when you get to a bigger hotel like that, and you obviously have very particular standards you're trying to uphold as a 5-star hotel, then the support in terms of training and guidance and support of other people needs to be really ramped up quite dramatically. And I think that was certainly the biggest difference. I think was that there was a lot more structure to everything. Everything had a system and a process to follow, which was great. Still, I think it also helped me understand how hotels worked on a bigger level. You had a lot more interaction with sort of the kitchen and things like that at that time of night. You had a lot more interaction with the breakfast teams before they got started. I think during the day in hotels, sometimes that there can be a distance between different departments.
Yeah, and everyone's kind of just sort of going through the motion of like, what do I need to do in my department today? But actually, in the night team, it's much more condensed, and you've got that kind of camaraderie as well.
You have a night team, which is everything, and then during the day, it's your food and beverage team, and your rooms team, and your housekeeping team, and everything else. But at night, everyone's night, and then the roles that you have to play is the same. It's everything. Whatever the guest request might be, you're kind of having to cover it. So understanding a little bit of every department is really important. You need to know how to make a bed. You need to know how to prepare fairly basic meals and things like that. But that was all part of the night shift. And I think my understanding of the guest experience probably grew quite a bit. In that sense, I've always described that Turnberry experience as being my sort of hotel school. Because I learned so much, and sometimes had the time to really learn, and then sometimes it was busy enough that I was learning so much. But I think fire alarms was probably the thing I remember the most from Turnberry, because I think it still is, but almost completely insulated with horsehair is always the story we were told.
That was always part of the induction, wasn't it? The security manager, Jim, would kind of come in and basically just say, look, this hotel, it's insulated with horsehair. That means it's just highly flammable. So if there's a fire alarm, we're being serious here. We got a lot of training for that, though. I think that was an area where I really did feel that we were really prepared. But having said that, we would often do them in the day when it was, kind of in terms of the drills. But then, it's a different kettle of fish if you're on the night shift and suddenly the alarm's going off and it's like, oh God, right, we need to evacuate this hotel.
It was the worst. That really was the worst. To be in winter, helping people get out of the hotel in the middle of the night, and then trying to manage that. I mean, you're always covered by, we take guest safety, it is the most important thing. But often there is a reason. There's always a reason for a fire alarm to go off. It's never really a false alarm, and it's something. It can be a shower. It can be someone's done something they shouldn't have done in the kitchen, there's always a reason for it, almost always. It could be dust, and at the end of the day, you've woken up people in the middle of the night to send them out onto a putting green or something in the rain or whatever it might be. I remember guests coming out in dressing gowns and things like that, and out onto the it's not nice, and there is a reason, and sleep, as we've also mentioned on previous episodes, is the most important thing you can offer to guests who are staying at the hotel. A good night's sleep, and it's not conducive if you're having to go
but
out
I think
in the rain.
Handled well, of course, no one to be woken up and taken out into the Scottish wintry weather at 1 a.m. But I think handled well, and I think that does come back to that training and empowerment and just having a system that works. But then, I mean, from your perspective, what do hotels often get wrong about the night shift?
I think, not having enough people on duty is definitely a challenge. Not having enough sort of guidance to the people who are there, but it is a commercial decision as well, and there can be such a difference between, because you're in such a small number of people. 3 might be the perfect number of people to have on duty, but having 4 is far too many, and having 2 isn't enough. Just one person difference can be too much or too little. So getting that right number of people on there is challenging, and you have to make it work from a commercial perspective. I think just having one person ever on duty on their own is always risky, but completely necessary if you have a 20-person hotel or something like that, and the rates aren't massive, and it's maybe really quiet on a couple of nights. That one person could be on their own and quiet, or that one person could be really busy and too busy. But you need to kind of keep in mind maybe what the backup systems are. So if there's maybe someone sleeping in-house, so I think that was often what we...
having the ability to get additional support quickly in that scenario.
I think treating it as we can put anyone in there just to look after things is a dangerous thing to do. I think there needs to be that level of trust. I think you need to know your guests and know your property particularly well before you make those sort of decisions. But I think it does need to be treated like an opportunity for progression in people's careers, and selling it as such. But then if you have done that, you need to make sure that the expectation from the employee perspective might be, okay, I'll do this for 6 months, or I do it for a year, or I do it for a year and a half. Like, what is the expectation from them? And then making sure that happens. So if you've sold it as an opportunity to develop, you better be sure to have a role for them to develop into in that time period, they're going to be going somewhere else.
Yeah, and I think when you were at the Park Tower Knightsbridge, I think you did a night shift for a while, wasn't it?
So when I first moved, I pretty much did it consistently, I think for about 6 months.
Yeah.
And then I had about 2 or 3 months on day shifts, and then went back onto night shifts. Now, I think the system there was good in terms of the night managers were sort of assistant managers for the front for the front desk and reception. So there was a team of 4 or 5 assistant managers, and they would rotate between them to do the night shift. So there wasn't a particular night manager, which I think worked in terms of being able to employ people who were ambitious and wanted to move on. The biggest problem there was, until someone moved on, there wasn't really... You basically continued doing the night shift until there was
wasn't
movement.
Necessarily a sort of clear path to
progression. It wasn't a clear path. So you ended up, and it can be really challenging if you're doing just 2 night shifts in a week, and then you're doing day shifts as well.
Yeah,
so
you almost want to do like a full batch and then just get your whole.
So that's why it was kind of long
clock.
periods of time of doing night shifts, and that sort of suited me. But I think ever since then, I've never been able to properly sleep. During and so I probably always have been a bit of a night owl, but I can very easily stay awake till 1, 2, 3 in the morning, and I think I'd put it back to then, like just being able to never really get jet lag from travel, for example. And a lot of that is just being able to shift between being awake at night or being awake during the day. Or, you know, I can sleep late and I can stay up late any day.
God,
if I
I'm
need
exactly the opposite. I get really quite precious about sleep and having the right amount of sleep. Otherwise, it really affects me. And I think I'm much more the early bird. Do my boot camps and that's when I do my best work. But yeah, I did do a few night shifts in the Broadmoor in Colorado, which I mentioned, and I mean it was just a totally different experience from being in. I mean, that hotel had about 800 rooms, so it was so busy, and some days you were doing like 600 check-ins, 600 check-outs, depending on events that were coming in. So by contrast, the night shift was fairly kind of chill and breezy.
What were the managers like? What was the leadership like at night?
So we had one night manager who was, again, similar sort of assistant manager that worked at night, assistant kind of front office manager, and then we did have a like the sort of senior duty manager, so who would be around in the evening, just because it was such a big hotel, 5-star, 5 diamond. Like, we did need to have that, to have loads of security, and kind of kitchen for sort of room service and things. So, I mean, there was a core team, but from a kind of front office perspective, you weren't really past midnight kind of seeing many guests, because there just wasn't really that late night. There was like the Golden Bee pub, but it was kind of a bit more off the sort of main property. So you may see people kind of coming in to go into bed. The only thing which I really struggled with was when the hotel was absolutely full and overbooked, and if you were on the night shift and you were like minus 10 rooms and you knew if that door opened and someone was carrying a suitcase, you're going to have to walk them. But it wasn't a case of just walking them down to like a similar hotel. There was literally no similar hotel that was near. So you would have to kind of find something in like downtown Colorado Springs. So the Antler Resort, which is sort of similar period of property, was kind of like the best, like kind of next option. But again, they would, if we were full, they would probably be full as well. So, you were like, Travel Lodge on the outskirts of the I-25, anyone, from this, beautiful resort. So that was always like the fear that I would have. I think you've hit the nail on the head. That I have sort of a fair bit of PTSD on that one. God, the overbooking.
Overbooking people. And I think, I mean, yes, you had lots of, certainly in London, you had lots of sort of pre-registrations, people who booked rooms to be ready at 7 or 8 a.m, whatever time they were going to arrive at. So you had a bit of flexibility there, and then you had you had options, but the policy was to overbook a little bit.
There is so much
always going to be
wash and so much.
There was going to be no shows, cancellations, pre-arrivals that you could have a room ready for. You basically just, whoever checked out first, you needed to make sure that room got ready as soon as possible. Normally, a housekeeping team could take care of it from 6 a.m. and be ready for 7.
Yeah.
It'd be absolutely fine. But that it is very stressful, and you have people coming in and out of the hotel all the time. But yeah, you're right. If they had suitcases, is that a suitcase coming
checking
for
in
someone who's already checked in, or is it a new check-in?
My heart would sink.
And you would get to know those reservations really well. You'd be like going through them with a fine-tooth comb to kind of identify if there's any little clue there that they might actually have pre-registered, or there might be something in there, some sort of communication that suggests that they were going to cancel or something, or it might be a non-guaranteed like there'd be something.
But it always felt a little bit like a game of chess, because you were trying to kind of look at what outcomes, what booking channel, what was the likelihood that they would show up, and sort of allocating the rooms based on, okay, these people have booked direct, so therefore often they would get preference. These are like on an OTA, that online travel agent, so they've not paid a deposit, they could maybe cancel. But then I remember the sort of reports that would be issued in the morning. It was always like such a win if we like closed on like 100% dead on, but we'd overbooked by 10 in order to get to that. Whereas actually, if we'd kept those 10 rooms, then we wouldn't have filled. So it was always like that little kind of ringing the bell that we were 100% last night, and like we did a really good system of managing all of our inventory.
Because that would necessitate some sort of work to because if you could very easily that could be 100%, but some of them were no shows, but you've charged, so technically you'd have to,
you've kind of covered it.
I think for some of the hotels there was always a literal bonus if you're over 95%. So I think that was often the key. So I think if you book through points and things like that on through Starwood, so for the Starwood hotels, guests, if you're over 95%, there was a bonus. They would basically match the average rate of the hotel for all of those award stays. So that was really worth quite a bit of money. Could be worth hundreds, if even thousands of pounds at some of the central London hotels. So it was really, really crucial that it was over 95. But you're right, that to have the 100 on the button was always so much fun and so rare.
I'd say it's so hard, like so many moving parts to get right. So another of my experience is not technically kind of a night manager, but we would do manager on duty weekends when I worked in Thailand
very
at
resorty
the
kind
luxury
of a
collection.
thing, isn't it?
So that was like quite a nice experience, to be honest. So we would go to work on Friday and then basically stay in the hotel until Monday morning. So we'd have a room, we would be able to eat in any of the 10 restaurants on property, and we would be, I suppose, the kind of main decision maker or support the team. But again, it's a huge resort. There might be up to 1,400 guests in house. In those busier times. So, again, all of the key department heads would be there, but there wouldn't be, the general manager, the ops manager, generally speaking. There was a lot of like problem resolution, thinking on your feet. And I think really just to sort of add an additional perspective, or to be the person that could just kind of take maybe a tough decision and that kind of took the pressure off maybe the other managers who were there.
And sometimes just to run an idea past them. And I think often in those situations, whether it be a HOD or maybe an assistant HOD who would come to you with that kind of thing, and they're like, this is what I want to do. Can you support that? Yeah, of course I will. Yeah.
But I really, it was a great opportunity to spend time in the hotel during all of those different periods of the day. And I think as the marketeer and the sort of communicator on behalf of the hotel, we were selling this experience and communicating this experience, and sometimes without actually experiencing it ourselves, so it was such a great chance to be in the sort of buzzy resort hotel and just see what brought people joy and the different sort of like demographics of the guests, and if they were there with families, if they were there for a wedding. It was just great to really see that firsthand and experience it. And thankfully I didn't have too many kind of difficult situations. One, which I think, again, we've talked about, which didn't happen at night, thankfully, but it was the early tsunami alert system. So, that was that kind of preparing to evacuate if we needed to. And it was.
I don't remember Jonathan Pine ever having to deal with that in the night manager.
He didn't, did he?
In fact, he's not really even a night manager
I know,
anymore.
Is he's he just not? Kinda,
no, well, I don't
surely
know.
Not. He's I think he's like kind of undercover now, isn't he? No spoilers. But yeah, it's but and I probably didn't have so much operational experience, I would say, because I was sat within the commercial team. But it was just a great opportunity to spend that time with the team, meet colleagues that I maybe didn't work with on that day-to-day basis, and see the sort of challenges and opportunities from their perspective, and also I think like come up with other creative ideas for marketing and showcasing the hotel because you'd sort of lived that experience. So I think really almost I feel like it's such an opportunity to learn. And I think if anyone working in hotels has the opportunity to kind of do like a shadow shift and kind of work, 1 or 2 nights with the night team, if you have one, just to see that different perspective of the hotel, I just think it's just such a worthwhile opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it's always kind of included when you going through hotel school and maybe doing a placement or something like that. I think everyone really understands how important it is to see the hotel in those sort of situations, because you kind of get to understand that whole guest cycle, don't you? I think that's really, really key. I mean, during the day, it's people are out for the day, they're being tourists, they're maybe working, they're checking in, checking out, there's time pressures, all that kind of thing. But once you get to the evening, maybe, just before dinner or just after dinner, in the bar afterwards and going up to the room, that's where that kind of cloak kind of comes down a little bit, and there's opportunities to really connect with guests as well there. And I think that's really important too. There's I've gone to hotels that are maybe less luxury, and the night team feels more like security than hosts, like hospitality hosts. But I think at luxury hotels, that's not the case, and they are really hosts. They really do, and I think that you can have great experiences, service experiences at that time as well. And maybe there's a little bit more time going up to guest rooms and things like that as well, to maybe assist with room service deliveries or requests they might have, to help out, and that's an opportunity where you can really connect and build that trust that we always talk about as being so key to the guest experience. I think from a employee perspective, I think it's doing those night shifts is an incredible opportunity to learn and to build your profile and to build your trust amongst the management team and the leadership team. I think it's something, if you are given the opportunity, take it with two hands. If you're not given the opportunity, then it's certainly something worth pursuing, to sort of build your own confidence. I think you do need to make sure training is in place for those teams. I think that is really key. But ultimately, handing over, recording information, passing over information in the morning, that morning kind of handover is so crucial, whether that's everything written down already or you're kind of just giving the people the information. I think once you've done a 12-hour night shift, all you want to do is go home. But making sure that you've passed over every bit of information clearly to the day team, I think is really, really key, because there are so many insights that you will have that will be really, really important to the day team. And no one after a night shift wants to be getting a call at midday when they've just got to sleep.
Following up on this.
Yeah, exactly. I just wanted to check. It's like, no, that's not good. You definitely want to avoid that one. But yes, from night manager role, it's a glamorous one on TV. It's not always as glamorous. It can be. But maybe not as regularly as a TV show. Yeah. But if you've ever worked on a night shift or managed a hotel after midnight, then please do share your stories.
Absolutely, let us know. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from them. Tom Hiddleston, if you're there, if you're listening, you can let us know what happens here. Why is it still called night manager? If you're not actually doing any night manager shifts. But until next time, the Halo Effect.
Oh, thank you.
Bye. Thank you for listening to The Halo Effect, Hospitality Stories with Ashleigh and Michael Donald. We hope today's episode has offered some insights and encouragement to anyone navigating the world of hospitality or entrepreneurship. We'd love to hear from you. If you have a question, want to suggest a topic, or interested in just joining us as a guest, you'll find our contact details in the show notes. Don't forget to follow, like, or subscribe to The Halo Effect on your favourite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. Until next time, thank you, and we can't wait to welcome you back for more stories and inspiration.